I didn't have a traditional background. I mean, I studied communications and economics in school. I went to Wake Forest, but as a tennis player and D1 athlete, sports is a full-time job.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you don't have time over the summers, you're not doing internships and what have you. You're really training to come back and continue to play the next year. So once I went into the real world, you know, things changed.
Different.
It's a little different. It's a little different. Yeah.
For those of you just joining us with Touchstone Talks, I'm here with Carlos. He's with Worcester Square as a partner and wealth manager, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about what he does and how he works with his clients today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. Carlos and I kind of have worked together on XPX for quite a while now, gotten to know each other. Excellent resource, good person to call. So what I hear a lot, though, with talking to our clients is they have their guy, they have their person. So what makes somebody go call you instead of their person?
Yeah, great question. It's going to be a long-winded answer.
That's okay. That's okay.
But it's funny because I read a McKinsey article this morning about two. It was highlighting two of the like real big important issues in the wealth management industry going on today.
Mm-hmm.
The first being that there's an aging advisor population, right? So the average advisor in America is a 63-year-old white male, right? Living a comfortable life, right? After running a successful business in the wealth management space, nearing retirement, and quite awesome, more often than not, juggling too many relationships to really give a high touch service that clients are, to every single client, right? Outside of their top clients or so. The second thing that they had mentioned was the fact that since there is a higher reliance on personal savings for retirement, and not to mention the proliferation of more complex and sophisticated investment options, folks today are looking for. There's a growing need for greater advice and guidance that is more holistic and more comprehensive, right? So those two factors are leading to folks basically being unhappy or having some level of ambivalence with their existing advisor, primarily because of the fact that they feel like they're being underserved.
Okay.
Right. One of the things that was also saying is in the industry in McKinsey's article is that over the next 7 years, a third of the financial advisors that are in the business today will have retired. Right. So that as in a backdrop in and of itself, the main reason why people leave one advisor to the next is service. Right.
Makes sense.
They don't feel that they're getting the value of what they're paying for. They don't feel like they're being underserved, right? They feel like there's some level of being underserved. I could say about 90% of my clients today had a financial advisor before deciding to work with me. So it's very few and far between that I am the very first financial advisor that somebody's working with. More often than not, it's we've had a conversation. There was an issue at the time that they weren't happy with, and they started to look elsewhere. Right.
Okay.
And once they start to see somebody that has a more tailored approach to their specific need, then that's usually the catalyst for change. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I actually am just sitting here thinking that I don't know that I ever thought about when I got a financial advisor. Right. Like I just got one.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it was a marked experience of the first financial advisor.
Yeah. Not many.
How often do you run into somebody where you're the first financial advisor?
It's very rarely. It's very rare. The two main client demographics are niche. The two primary clients that I work with are business owners and minority physicians, folks that are in the medical field. even folks that are coming or fresh out of residency and fellowship, they have had some interaction with a financial advisor, right?
Yeah.
Or somebody, I should say, that considers himself to be a financial advisor, whether that's their insurance person that's selling them disability and life insurance. They've had some interaction before in the past, and that's usually the case. Is that I'm not the first person, and very rarely too. I mean, we're talking about exit planning and exit. Business owners that are exiting. Any business owner with some stature of wealth and success has an advisor.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and now you have, at least in the state of Connecticut, they have, ready-made plans that you can send your people to go get the equivalent of a 401k from the state.
Yeah, My CT Saves.
Yeah, My CT Saves.
Fun one.
So they've got at least that.
They've got something.
In place.
Yeah.
They've got something in place.
It can be better, but yeah.
Correct. So talk to me. I work with business owners. You work with business owners. Tell me how you work with a business owner.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on where they are in their journey, right? If they're 5 years or more away from their exit, we are really focusing on what I like to call owner-based financial planning. Take a step back. I'm a wealth manager, so investing money, managing investments is what I do. It's a core of what I do all day, every day, right? It's a core function. An equally important function of what we do is financial planning, and specifically for business owners, owner-based financial planning. So if they're 5 years away or more from exiting, we're really focusing on de-risking their finances, improving cash flows and in growth, both for the value. And again, I'm doing the planning. I'm coming to folks like you to do the execution, right? So that's the core function there. And then, the third component of when they're that far away from an exit is really focusing on how can we set them up for a successful exit? What are the strategies that we need to put in place, or can we put in place, and start to, which partners can we start to pull the levers on to get involved? If they're within the 5-year time frame, that's go time. Right. You really need to be working with a strong team of advisors that have had experience doing this. Right. This is going to has the potential to be one of the most the most critically important financial event of their life.
Do you find that when you're looking at their financial plan, is most of their retirement coming from exiting their business? Absolutely.
The vast majority of their wealth is tied up in their business. And again, it's, going back to what I was saying before about the busy average financial advisor, right, in America, a lot of business owners will have a couple $100,000, maybe $500,000, a little bit under $1 million, maybe, in a brokerage account, right? Maybe a little bit in IRA here and there, or if they're, if their advisor is good enough and they've worked with them, they maybe have set up a 401k plan for them, but that's it, right? And that successful financial advisor that's been in the business for 25, 30 plus years, what's the likelihood of that individual, that business owner, being one of their top clients and getting that white glove service that they need, that they need and want and deserve? Probably not there, right? So what we found is that, folks sell their business, for $5, $10, $15 million. It happens more often than not, right? So the majority of their wealth is tied up in their business. And rightfully so. That's where they've reinvested all of their time, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears. And that's kind of what ends up happening, right? So if there is not a strong alignment between their long-term personal financial goals and the value of their business, maximizing the value and minimizing tax surprises, if that's not part of the process, you're not really getting what you need.
Makes sense. We hear it all the time. Business owners don't typically love to pay out the taxes on what they just took in. They want options. Options don't get set up instantaneously.
Takes time.
You've got to set them up over time. Exactly.
Yeah. There's, and I think about this too, right? Obviously there's emergency planning, right? If you get somebody that says to you, "Oh, I got an unsolicited offer yesterday. I signed an LOI. Like let's move. You have options. There's certain things you can do, but the more time you have to plan, the more arrows you have in your quiver, the more options you have at your disposal, right? The more time you have to implement those value drivers to enhance your business value and make your business more attractive to buyers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, it's more time is better,
Mm-hmm.
but depending upon where, like I said, depending upon where the client is in their journey, we can work together in a variety of ways early on in that red zone crunch time, and then also setting them up in the future if it's post sale, right? Investing smarter, optimizing income, and reducing taxes. Those are the three core components for people that are post sale.
Yeah. I'm amazed at, we talk to people at the beginning, right? When we do our estimate of value and we say, now go talk to your wealth manager, go talk to your accountant, plan for this here where we've told you what you're expecting.
Yep.
Before we get, and inadvertently people get busy, life happens, exiting a business is not without work, and you're still running your company.
Mm-hmm.
The conversations prior to the EOV would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Have that set up before. Come to me and say, I have this trust. Here's my plan. That's fabulous, because once you start hitting the gas, so to speak, once you've got the LOI, once due diligence is going to suck every minute of your time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's absolutely no way around that if you want to get across the finish line.
Yeah.
But I remember very early on, I was working with a client and he did not sit down with his wealth manager until 3 days before close.
And that's unfortunate.
And it was, I'm expecting a very large check. And it was the guy had ever heard of a very large check.
Well, and that's the thing. That's my point exactly, right? The advisor should know what's going on, should know where is, how close are you to exiting the business?
Mm-hmm.
What have you done so far? Who have you been talking to? What's your team look like?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Exit planning is a interdisciplinary approach, right? It requires that.
Yep.
There's coordination from all aspects, because everything is tied in together, right? Everything that I do, everything that you do, everything that accountants do, everything that attorneys do, right? It's all important, and it all plays together.
Mm-hmm.
And if the left hand is not aware of what the right hand is doing,
becomes difficult.
It becomes difficult. That's a good way to put it.
We can still get you there.
Yeah, we can get you there.
But it may not be the same way that we would have recommended.
Exactly. You bring up a lot of really great points about what needs to happen early on.
Mm-hmm.
The earlier the better, right? And that's the way, a lot of what we do when we engage with folks is really, just getting started of saying, okay, let's figure out what's going on, right? Let's do a deep dive of kind of where you are right now, where you're trying to get to,
Mm-hmm.
What are your expectations of the future, right? And both for you personally and also for the business,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can't really do a good job of extrapolating out what your personal financial plan looks like if you don't have clear financials and projections of what your revenues will look like, because then you can't get an accurate representation of what your value is going to be. And we can't get a proper estimate of values for the different types of sale, right? So when 70-80% of your wealth, your net worth is tied up in your business, and we don't know what that is, it makes my job extremely difficult as a wealth manager to really be able to present you with clear options, right?
Right.
And like we said, when that retirement red zone hits, it's game on. You can't get it right. You can't get it wrong. You only have this time.
No, nobody wants to exit their business to go work at Walmart.
Well, being a greeter sounds actually kind of nice.
Relaxing?
It does, right?
It could. It
does.
Could.
Actually, it's funny. I have a client that retired to become a blackjack dealer.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And it was awesome. When I heard that story, I was like, that's fantastic.
Yeah. If you love it, right? Like that's the ultimate goal is to end up doing what you love.
Just go hang out and
Deal cards.
deal cards.
Okay. I mean, at least you're not sitting at the table the whole time spending money.
Touche.
So it's definitely a better investment.
I like the way you think.
So you have a special certification. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So like I said, exit planning is an interdisciplinary approach, requires that. And there is a ton of different designations and methodologies, certifications, what have you, that people can go for and look at. When I was looking at, I'm a certified financial planner, certified investment manager analyst, and a certified private wealth advisor. Those are the three core planning and investment certifications that I have. A couple years ago, I decided to progress further down into specialization in the world of exit planning and looking at the variety of different options. I chose a certified exit planner, CEXP designations from the Business Enterprise Institute, BEI. That one stood out most to me above the certified exit planning advisor, the CEPA. I think there's another one, the CBEC, certified business exit coach, counselor.
I think it's coach.
And then the CMNAA, certified merger and acquisition advisor. Those are really focused on, the last two definitely focused primarily on the transaction side. CEPA is more focused on, implementing the value acceleration method or value. So growing the business. But the CEXP really mimicked the certified financial planner designation, the CFP. So it was a defined, repeatable process that tied personal the value of your business to your it merged the value of your business and the growth of value of your business with your personal financial plans, and it looked at all of the things combined. So tax, estate, valuations for your business, obviously personal finances, and trusts, and looking at everything combined. And I really looked at that as saying is that mimics taking elements from that methodology and merging it into the certified financial planner methodology would enhance what I'm doing. Right now, I'm not doing valuations. You don't want me doing valuations, right? I manage money. You do valuations, right? So I'm not doing valuations. I know how to do it, but I'm not doing it. I got great partners like you for that.
Exactly.
We have the value drivers. We talked about that a little bit. Those are the elements, the core elements of the business and financial levers that you can pull on and adjust to enhance the value of the business and make it more attractive to buyers, right? Cleaning up financials, enhancing operational efficiencies, things like that. The metrics that get you a better multiple that take time to put in place, those are value drivers.
Right.
I'm not going to be sitting in your office and, talking to your managers about this, but you can, right?
I can.
That's what Exit Advantage is all about, right?
Exactly.
So, but the fact of the matter is of that me having the experience in knowledge and certification of understanding exactly what it is that you're doing and how you do it, so that I can make sure that when clients are having conversation with clients, these are the things that you need to really be focusing on. I know you're not thinking about exiting right now, but these are the things that are going to drive the value, improve the value of your business to potential buyers in the future. Is here's what we need to work on. Let me make some introductions for you, right? These are when we need to start making the introductions and formulating your team around you, right? So that's what the CEXP is all about. Not for nothing, the other designations, and there's no slight at anybody with the other designations. I've actually been thinking about getting the CEPA as a follow-on, but you study a couple months and you go to a conference for a couple days and you have your designation. The CEXP took about almost a year and a half to go through the entire process.
Okay.
It is a very lengthy, very time intensive discipline that I felt aligned more with my planning process, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
It sounds like you approach things very holistically.
I do.
I know we're slightly limited on investment strategy conversations because we don't want to give unsolicited advice, but give us kind of an overview on if I'm going to work with you,
Yeah.
what am I going to feel is your focus?
Gotcha. So I think it's important to distinguish between investment philosophy and investment framework,
Okay.
right? So the investment philosophy is sort of your core beliefs and your driving force. So how do you do what are your thought process around investing? The framework is is a structured process that you put in place to implement those beliefs, right? So, you're a sports mom, right? So you can understand this analogy. The investment philosophy is like your coaching style, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas your investment philosophy is like your coaching style, whereas your investment framework is more along the lines of your practice regimen and your workouts, right? What's your playbook and what's your practice workouts look like, right, for the team?
Okay.
So those two things combined. So my philosophy is that you have to have a idea before you have clarity. You need clarity before you actually do anything, clarity before action. And what that means is basically you need to have a plan of what you're trying to accomplish, right? You don't set out to go on a road trip without planning out what you're going to be going, where you're going, how you're going to get there, what routes you're going to take, because that way you know if you're going to be on time or not to where you're trying to get to. The actual implementation method, now for me, I use what we call advanced time segmentation, which is where it's very similar to the old bucket theory, the original bucket theory that you think of.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where we have 5 separate time segments that are broken out for immediate income, income over the next 7 years, a balanced bucket balancing between income and long-term growth, and then that fourth and fifth bucket are pure long-term growth, and then diversified in alternatives for durable income, right?
Okay.
So the strategy, once it's implemented, after the planning has been done and the strategy is built, it's all about making sure that the client has the right money in the right buckets at the right time.
Makes sense.
So each of those buckets have a specific place and time. Again, if a client's way away from retirement, the majority of their assets are probably going to be in the long-term growth or balanced buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Once they are sold their business and they're living in retirement, that's when we reallocate amongst the different buckets or the different segments, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to then create lifetime income over the next 7 years, which again gets replenished. A balance again between the income bucket and then the long-term growth bucket. And then in those other two, it's again, like I said, pure focus on growth versus providing durable income through different market trends and conditions. So that's the framework. Again, long-winded answer.
That's okay.
The portfolio construction. Now, I'm a firm believer that of asset allocation and diversification.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is we use low-cost ETFs and funds to build the baseline of the portfolio. And then we layer on top of that high conviction active managers, typically utilizing separately managed accounts. And then we put a moat around it, if you will, using diversifiers and alternatives investments to really reduce volatility in the portfolio.
Excellent.
So it's a buildup of starting from the beginning of what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, which time segments or buckets, if you will, are we going to allocate to, and then how are each of those buckets built and developed? And that's again through, like I said, the portfolio construction methodology.
Excellent. And you go through these steps with each of your clients?
Everybody gets the same thing.
Excellent.
Scalability.
It's an issue. You have a lot of time on your hands, or none. The case may be.
Everybody gets the same process.
Mm-hmm.
For some, it's a little bit more intensive than others, right? It really just depends on kind of what they're trying to accomplish. Again, like I said, if someone's 10, 15 years away from when they're going to sell their business or transact,
Mm-hmm.
again, that's most likely going to be the majority of that's going to be in long-term growth, right? So it's kind of easy at that point. Really, once you're about 5 years out, that's when you're looking at building a retirement income plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that without having a firm understanding of what you're going to have after you exit, right?
True.
That's where that go time really starts to come into play. And that's where the heavy lifting starts to come up again, with making sure that we have a firm understanding of what the value of the business is today and where you're trying to get it to, so that you can retire, sell a business, retire, and then not run out of money.
Right. I say, and live the whole time.
Exactly.
In terms of, we've been talking a little bit in these about pre-retirement, and being able to make the choices on what you have time to do, whether it's support a theater group, play in a band, go play blackjack, or deal blackjack, actually. So if you were not doing this, because you kind of got into it in a very roundabout way.
Yeah.
If you hadn't done wealth management, what would you be doing?
Great question. So if I were to go back and do it all over again, and this route was not an option, right? That's how I hear that question. I think I probably would either end up as a surgeon in private practice or a chef.
Very different choices.
Two very different choices.
Both use your hands.
Very use my hands. I mean, here's the thing. I'm an entrepreneur through and through. That's my family background. That's our family business growing up. We had, businesses. So it'd be something that's going to be where I'm still in business for myself, if you will. Hence the private practice component. Right. But, I look at and see what a lot of my other types of clients do. And it's fascinating to me. And I think that's part of the reason why I've gravitated to those individuals as well. And then on the flip side of it, I love to cook. So I would say that, like I said, if I were to do it all over again and this wasn't an avenue, I'd probably end up as a chef.
So there's your pre-retirement
plan. My pre-retirement plan, yeah.
Say you can hang up the wealth manager hat and go to culinary school.
Well, I'm not the average, right, advisor in the country. I'm not a 65. I'm not 63 years old.
You're not average.
and I'm not a white male. So so I got plenty of time until I retire. And I got plenty of time until I retire. So that's the thing. Yeah. I'd really, really, actually, I think I might even do that. Just sort of, it would be fun to just be formally trained, I guess, as a chef.
It's on my bucket list.
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. That's what I would definitely do.
Excellent. I'll see you there.
Yeah, love it.
We'll go to culinary school together.
Fantastic.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been good getting to know your practice more, and everybody should give you a call if they need you.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
You're welcome.